Well, I hope I'm going to be able to add a little something to the program today. My name is Jim Kennedy. I am one of the coaches here at Prosperity Group, and what I'm going to be talking about today is the deal matrix. I'm going to show you how to analyze a deal and decide which solution you can use to take the deal down. We call it the deal matrix, and it's pretty simple. It's pretty straightforward. First of all, I'm going to ask you to hold all your questions till the end. I'll answer as many as I possibly can at the end, and I will be back. I'll be in the back of the room for the balance of the day to answer any questions you have on the breaks. Okay, the deal matrix is set up this way. There are basically 10 scenarios that you might encounter with a particular seller, and they are listed down here along the left hand side. Nina, can we go ahead and pass those handouts? You're going to have a handout that looks exactly like this chart on the screen, and so you'll be able to read those scenarios very easily. There's 10 of them down along the left side. Across the top are 9 different solutions, 9 different ways to take down a deal. Okay. While she's handing out the sheets, let me go over the seller scenarios. Here's what you may encounter. You may encounter a distressed seller that has a distressed property with lots of equity. Now, what do I mean by a distressed seller? I'm sorry? Yeah, please.
Going into foreclosure.
Going into foreclosure, exactly. What else could be a distressed seller? Divorce. What would you say? Someone may have died, exactly, a probate deal. So anything like that where the seller is in distress and they need to get rid of the property. The distressed property, that's pretty straightforward. This is a property that needs a lot of work. I love junker properties. I make more money on junker properties than I do on pretty house deals. So I like junker properties. Lots of equity is straightforward. Equity is the difference between the fair market value of the property and all the liens and encumbrances against the property. It's the difference. That's your equity. So the first scenario we see here is a distressed seller that owns a distressed property with lots of equity. That's a sweet deal. Okay? We also may have a distressed seller that's got a distressed property that has little or no equity. That's a tough one. We might have a non-distressed seller, someone who's not facing foreclosure, they're not a tired landlord, they don't have any scenario that's causing them consternation except the house itself. The house itself is distressed. It's a junker. Maybe it was a tenant-occupied property, and the tenant might have trashed it on his way out the door. Okay? So we've got a non-distressed seller with a distressed property with lots of equity, or a non-distressed seller with a distressed property with little or no equity. Again, that's a tough scenario. Or a distressed seller with a non-distressed property with lots of equity, a distressed seller with a non-distressed property with little or no equity, a non-distressed seller with a non-distressed property with lots of equity, and a non-distressed seller with a non-distressed property with little or no equity. So those are 8 different scenarios where you're talking about the seller situation and the property situation and the amount of equity. The 3 variables are the seller's scenario, the seller's situation, the condition of the property, and whether or not there's equity. And then the last two categories down here on this left side are rental properties and wholesale deals. So those are the 10 different scenarios that we might encounter regarding the seller and the property and the equity situation. Now across the top, we've got 9 different solutions. The first solution is cash. And I don't care where that cash comes from. Cash out of your pocket, cash out of your bank account, cash from a hard money lender, or cash from a private money lender. Doesn't matter. It's all considered cash. Okay. The next category is owner financing. That's where an owner has a property. They don't have a loan against the property, and they're willing to finance you and step into the position of being the bank. A wraparound mortgage, same thing, but they've got an existing loan on the property. They're going to owner finance it to you, but they've got an existing loan, so what they have to do is wrap that loan. Here's their original loan from Bank of America or Chase or whoever, XYZ mortgage company, and they're going to take a new loan and wrap it right around that and make that new loan to you. That's called a wraparound. The next scenario is sub 2 or subject to. That's where you can buy the property subject to the existing financing. Now this is a sweet situation, because when you buy properties subject to, you in effect take over their loan. You start making payments on their loan, but you don't accept any liability. You don't assume the loan like we did 20 or 30 years ago. You just start making the payments on the loan. That's called a subject to. Okay. Next we have a lease option or a delayed closing contract. A lease option, in fact, John Jackson was here earlier in the back of the room, and he is the expert on lease options here in the state of Texas. The Texas legislature made some changes to the Texas Property Code, I think it was in 2005, if I'm not mistaken, that seriously impacted the use of lease options. It is still available to us in Texas. You just have to be very, very careful how you structure that deal. Okay, flex option. Have we talked about flex option at all here? Okay, flex option is an interesting concept. Tim Mai created it. It's a fairly new vehicle, and basically it's very similar to a regular option. And let me explain a regular option first so that I can come back and explain flex option. A regular option means that you as the buyer have the right but not the obligation to buy the property. The buyer has the right but not the obligation to buy the property. The seller has to sell it to you. That's a regular option. Now, most real estate transactions have a little option clause, the TREC form, the Texas Real Estate Commission form that realtors use. It has an option clause, I think it's on page 9, that says you give the seller a certain dollar amount, maybe $100, for a 10-day free look. That's an option. You can back out because you're not obligated to buy the property. So you buy 10 days or a week or 14 days or whatever. You buy the option to look at the property and do some due diligence, and for no reason at all you can cancel, but the seller keeps your option money. Okay? So that's an option. Standard option is the seller has to sell to the buyer, but the buyer doesn't have to buy. The buyer has the right to buy, but not the obligation to do so. All right? Well, now that you know what an option is, I'm going to explain a flex option. A flex option is basically nothing more than a handshake. It's probably the weakest solution of the 9 up there, but it's an interesting concept. A flex option says you as the buyer have the right but not the obligation to buy, but the seller also has the right but not the obligation to sell. And here's what a flex option basically says. It says, Mr. Seller, if you enter into this agreement with me, you're going to give me 14 days or 21 days or whatever is negotiated between the parties. You're going to give me that time to try and market your property, get an end buyer in here, and at the end of that time, if I haven't found a buyer, anytime thereafter, you can cancel the contract. Just give me, 24 hours notice, written notice. So both parties have the ability to get out of the contract. Okay? All right. And then the last, I'm sorry, then we got short sale. Does anybody not know what a short sale is? Okay, good. A short sale means that a bank, a lender, someone who's got a loan on a property is going to accept less than they're entitled to as full payoff. Now, why would anybody do that? Well, when the market crashed and the real estate went down in value, a lot of people, their mortgages were more than the property was worth. They got what's called upside down on their mortgage. So short sales became fairly attractive as a way for somebody to sell a property and avoid foreclosure, but it requires the bank's agreement, because the bank is going to agree to take less money than they're entitled to as full payoff for their loan. Okay, and then the last column here is conventional financing. That's the stuff that everybody knows about. That's what the normal real estate market is predicated on, is conventional financing. It's when you go to the bank or a mortgage company, get a loan, put 20% down, get qualified, pre-qualified, and buy a piece of property. That's conventional financing. It's the most common way that property is funded. Okay, so we've got the 10 scenarios down the left column, and we've got the 9 solutions or possible solutions across the top. All right, so what we're going to do now is we're going to look at each one of these scenarios on the left, and we're going to fill in on your sheet, the sheet that was passed out to you, we're going to fill in the appropriate solutions. And what I've done is I've put a Y where it is a very appropriate solution, and I put a question mark where it's it'll work, but it's not the best. Okay, so for a distressed seller with a distressed property with lots of equity, a cash transaction is a very normal thing to see. Cash transaction is how I buy a lot of my properties. I buy them with private money mostly, some of my own money. I just recently bought one with hard money, and I haven't used hard money in over 10 years. We'll talk about that in the next section. So a cash transaction is a very common way for somebody to buy a property from a distressed seller who's got a distressed property. I buy a lot of junker properties. They won't qualify for conventional financing because the property itself won't pass the bank's criteria. Okay, so I use cash to take those deals down. An option works very well in this scenario, as does a flex option. Now, There are three scenarios that can be used. They're not ideal, but they will work. One is owner financing, one is a wrap, and one is sub 2 or subject to. So on your sheet, put a Y here, a Y there, and a Y there, and put a question mark in those three spots. When we get finished today, in about 20 or 30 minutes, we're going to have this sheet completely filled out. And you will have the deal matrix so that you can look at any situation and find out, hey, do I have a distressed seller, yes or no? Do I have a distressed property, yes or no? Do I have little or no equity or lots of equity? And you'll be able to determine what the solutions are, the possible solutions. Troy here, did Troy had to leave? Okay, so for the first situation, cash is probably the most common scenario that you're going to see. Now the next scenario that we see is a distressed seller with a distressed property with little or no equity. George, how often do you find a distressed seller with a distressed property with little or no equity? Lots of times, right? I mean, they're out there. People that are upside down, exactly. And the solution for them is that short sale we talked about. In fact, that's virtually the only solution in this scenario. I'm sorry?
Questions are last one. We'll go with the questions at the end.
Yeah. So the short sale is about the only solution that's going to work when the property owner is upside down. Okay? All right, next we have a non-distressed seller with a distressed property with lots of equity. Now again, this is a good opportunity for real estate entrepreneurs, real estate investors, but not nearly as good as the opportunity you had in the first situation where the seller was motivated, highly motivated. Here you've got someone who's not highly motivated, but the property needs a lot of work, okay? But he's also got a lot of equity, so he's got more flexibility as a seller. On this one, cash works. Cash almost always works. Cash is wonderful. Owner financing will work, and a flex option will work. Those three are your best solutions for a non-distressed seller with a distressed property that's got lots of equity. Now, the wraparound mortgage, the sub 2, and the option are also viable, albeit they are not nearly as attractive or nearly as good as solutions as the other three. Okay? All right, the next scenario doesn't really have a real good solution. It's a non-distressed seller with a distressed property with little or no equity. Are you guys starting to see a trend here? If they've got lots of equity, there's generally some opportunity. If they don't have lots of equity, it's a little tougher to structure a deal. Well, in this case, there's no real good solution. However, there's 6 somewhat viable solutions. We can deploy cash to take down the property. We can use owner financing, a wraparound mortgage, sub 2, the flex option, or the option. Now the reason these work is because the property is not distressed. So these are scenarios where you might not have to put a lot of money into the deal. Okay. I'm sorry. The reason these work is because the property is distressed, and the reason they're not ideal solutions is because you might have to put some money into the deal. But the seller is non-distressed, so it's not a terribly motivated seller. Okay? The next scenario is one of the best opportunities you've got. A distressed seller, someone who's highly motivated for whatever reason, who's got a property that's move-in ready. It doesn't need a lot of work. It's a non-distressed property that's got lots of equity. Okay? So that has virtually every solution on the board works well in this scenario. You can deploy this, you can take this deal down with cash. You can use owner financing. You can use a wrap. You can buy it sub 2. Here's the first opportunity where we have a good opportunity to use a lease option or a delayed closing contract. Flex option works, and option works, and conventional financing works. This is the first time we've seen conventional financing come into play. Now, short sale doesn't work because the seller is non-distressed. I mean, wait a minute. Yeah, he is distressed. Oh, it's because it's a non-distressed property. Okay, and it's got lots of equity. So the short sale isn't going to work. That's the only one that's not going to work in this particular scenario. Okay? All right, next we have a distressed seller with a non-distressed property with little or no equity. Again, this is a tough situation. On this one, the ones that work, a lease option might work. A flex option might work, and an option might work. Also conventional financing. Now the 4 that are marginal is owner financing, a wraparound mortgage, sub 2, and a short sale. Okay, so this is for a distressed seller that's got a non-distressed property with little or no equity. Okay, the next scenario is a non-distressed seller with a non-distressed property with lots of equity. Who does that sound like? That sounds like the guy ought to have the property on the MLS. Okay? It's not a highly motivated seller. He can wait 45, 90, 120 days to sell to get top dollar. The property's in good condition, so he doesn't have a problem there. And he's got plenty of equity, so he can pay his realtor fees and so forth. You see tons and tons of those kinds of properties on the MLS. And the best solution there is a flex option. Now, you can use owner financing. You can bring a wrap into play. You're probably not going to get the guy to agree to sub 2 because he's not the least bit motivated. And you can always buy it with conventional financing. Now, as investors, that's probably the least attractive deal up there. Well, actually, there's one more that's even less attractive to us as investors, and that's the next one. That's a non-distressed seller, non-distressed property with little or no equity. Where do you find those people? FSBOs, for sale by owners. These are people who are trying to sell their own home because they don't have enough equity to pay the realtor's fees. So with them, here's what works. You can do a wrap. You can do a sub 2. They're probably not going to go, the seller's probably not going to go for either one of those very enthusiastically, but they would work. The more viable solutions are a lease option or a delayed closing contract and a flex option. A straight option could work and conventional financing could work, but the challenge is the guy's got little or no equity. So that's probably the least attractive seller scenario on the board. Okay, the last two categories have nothing to do with the seller situation or the equity situation. They're just two categories of properties. The first is rental properties, and the solutions that work very well. Cash works very well to buy rentals. Lease option works well. The owner is already leasing the property to the tenant. Coming in and lease optioning it to you works very well. Now, one of the challenges with the lease option is with the changes that took place to the Texas Property Code, you can no longer do what's called a sandwich lease option, where you lease option it from the seller and lease option it to a tenant buyer. Those are no longer available to us in Texas. So if you lease option from the seller, you can't give a buyer an option on the back end. So you have to do a straight rental. Okay? A flex option will work, and conventional financing kind of sorta. As is the case with owner financing, wrap, and sub 2. And then the last scenario, hope this shows up, is on the wholesale properties. And we already know that cash works very nicely. We've been talking about wholesale for a day and a half, and cash is what we've mostly been talking about for buying wholesale properties. The flex option works very nicely for a wholesale property. Owner financing, wrap, and sub 2 will work. They're not ideal, but they will work. So if you look at this grid, you look at all the solutions. Actually, you've got 8 very viable solutions for a distressed seller with a non-distressed property with lots of equity. That's a sweet deal. You've got eight ways to take that deal down. On the other axis, you've got eight ways or 8 scenarios in which the flex option works very well. So the flex option is a great solution to use in almost any scenario. Just understand it's probably not your first selection, because it's probably the weakest situation up there. And that flex option didn't even exist until Tim Mai created it. Tim Mai was the creator of the flex option. Okay, so any question about the deal matrix and how you can take down deals depending upon the scenario? Yes, ma'am.
Is there a fee with the flex option like there is with the regular option?
Typically, no. Typically, you want to do, well, let me rephrase that. It's always a negotiation between the optionor and the optionee, the seller and the buyer, the owner and the wholesaler. So, could there be a fee? Absolutely. Frequently, there's not. Or it may be $10, which I think is the same as not having a fee at all. Okay? Options can be very expensive. You can buy an option on a commercial property. Everything we saw on the deal matrix works nicely for residential and commercial. Okay? Now, a fee for optioning a commercial property could be extensive, could be big numbers, thousands and thousands of dollars, tens of thousands of dollars. It's not uncommon to see options used in commercial activities. On a standard Trek form, I don't think I've ever seen an option more than $300 for a 10-day free look, or a 14-day free look for $300. Most of the time it's $100. Realtors like $100 for 10 days. I don't know why. They like $100 for 10 days. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
The whole point of the option, the flex option, is to at least get it at least under contract, and at the same time allow the buyer and the seller the option to back out.
Exactly. You got that down exactly right. His comment was, is the purpose of the flex option to get it under contract and then give both the seller and the buyer the opportunity to walk away from the deal, and that's exactly the case. That's why it's the weakest of the contracts up there, the weakest of the 9 different solutions. Yes, ma'am.
On subject.
Now, I'm sorry, you're only allowed one. No, go ahead. I'm just messing with you.
Way over my limit. Subject to, does that require an approval from the bank, like it does on the short sale?
Okay, her question is, on a subject to, does it require the approval from the bank as is needed in the case of a short sale? The short answer is kind of, sort of, it depends, who knows, maybe. Okay, let me explain sub 2 to you. Sub 2 is where you go in and you say you're going to make the payment for the seller. You can notify the bank or not. If you don't notify the bank, more than likely you're in default. As a seller, more than likely you're in default. If you notify the bank, more than likely you're in default anyway, because most mortgages, or in our case in Texas, notes and deeds of trust, have what's called an alienation clause, which means if you sell the property, you're supposed to pay off the loan. However, the banks, what do banks do for a living? They loan money. That's what they do. As long as they're getting their money, they're generally pretty happy. Now, subject twos, are not to be entered into lightly. There is some risk involved. It's not for the amateur. I've done probably 30 or 40 of them. I've done 443 real estate transactions over a 40-year career. You'll get my resume in the next. In the next section, you'll get my resume. But I've done 443 real estate transactions over the last 40 years, and I have done probably 30 or 40 sub 2s, and I have never once had one called by the bank. And I have never notified the bank. Not once. Now, does that mean it won't happen next time? It might. The likelihood of it happening is so slim, I don't even consider it. I don't even worry about it. Technically, yes, you are supposed to notify the bank anytime you sell your property. They then have the opportunity to call the note. As long as the bank is getting their money, they pretty much don't care. Or the people that do care in the bank don't even know that there's a problem or that there's been a change, because when you send your check into the bank, a $10 or $15 or $20 an hour clerk opens that envelope, posts that payment to the account, which is not your account if you're an investor, it's the original owner's account, because they're still on the hook for the loan. They're still liable for the loan. All the liability is theirs. You as an investor have limited liability. Now, a lot of people say you have no liability. I don't believe that. I believe there is some liability. If you tell a seller, I'm going to make your payments, you better make the payments. Because if you don't, their credit is going to be damaged. So, in order to do a sub-2 transaction, it takes a highly motivated seller if they understand what's going on. And I make sure all of my sellers understand what's going on. I don't play funny with my sellers. I don't try and hide anything. I let them, and I have an attorney draft all the documents each and every time. I have an attorney draft the documents with full disclosures, so that they know that they're leaving the loan in their name, and I'm not paying off the note right then and there. I'm simply making their payments for them. And the great way to start that conversation, let's back up several months. When I'm first talking to the people, and I've determined that they're highly motivated because they're in one of these distress scenarios. They're highly motivated, and I start the conversation like this. Well, Mr. Seller, would it be of any help to you if I made your house payments for you? That's how I open up the conversation. I don't say, Mr. Seller, will you do a sub-2 with me? Yeah. He's not going to know what I'm talking about. He's going to be confused. He's going to say no, But if I say, Mr. Seller, would it help you at all if I made your house payments for you? Then I'm going to go on and explain the details. And I'm going to explain it in full, including the fact that he's still on the hook. Okay? Yes, Surrender.
The only time it triggers, if at all bank is interested in taking your property, is when the insurance changes. And I would like to ask you, what do you specifically do to prevent that situation?
I have never had a bank call a sub-2 deal, and I always change the insurance. I leave the current policy ride. I get added as also insured. When that policy expires, I get my own policy. And I've never had a bank call a note. That's what I do. I add myself to the existing policy, and as long as it's adequate coverage, I'll leave that policy alone until it expires, and then I'll get it in my name.
So does the original seller have is there a clause in there, additional interest, or he's not part of the insured?
He's still on the original policy because it's in his name, but I'm named as also insured.
Is that correct?
Yeah, I don't know what. That's my insurance agent's problem. He deals with that.
I've done the same way, but I've not been called either. But I've
Never been called. How many sub-2s have you done, roughly?
done probably 10 in the past.
10? Have you ever been called?
No.
No. No investor that I've ever talked to has ever had a sub-2 called, and I've talked to dozens of investors. I think you had a quick question.
Yeah, why is a wraparound like this?
A wraparound can be a viable solution, as you saw in some of these scenarios. Okay. Well, there's the best scenario. A wraparound has some challenges in that you now have two loans. You have the underlying loan, and then you have the wrap loan around it. Either scenario, you have a default, you might have a problem. If I've got a wrap, let's say I buy a property on a wrap, and I'm the investor. You have a house, you have a mortgage. You agree to sell the house to me with owner financing, and we're going to wrap it. We're going to leave your loan in place, and my new loan is going to wrap around yours. What happens if I pay you, but you don't pay your bank? That's one scenario. So you have to deal with that in the beginning, you have to have ways to mitigate risk. Remember when Tim said that risk and reward ratio is what it's all about? That's why wholesaling is so attractive, because there's virtually zero risk. Done correctly, wholesaling can be accomplished with virtually zero risk. It's the safest way to deal in real estate there is. But it doesn't pay much, unless you build a business around it. Per transaction, it's a lot less. Well, this gets to be more risky. The more complex the transaction, the higher the risk. So that's one of the scenarios that could cause a consternation with a wrap. Now, there's ways to mitigate that, and I'm not going to go into it now, but there are ways to mitigate the risk. Yes, sir. You were next.
Is there a certain formula for the subject to as far as how much you will offer repairs and subject to the mortgage or the payments? Is there a certain formula for different, let's say $100,000 or $50,000 for a property?
If I can get a property sub 2, I might be willing to pay a little bit more. There's no formula that I'm aware of. I might be willing to pay a little bit more because I'm taking over his financing and I've got less liability and less of my own cash in the deal, but I don't know of any formula. Yes, sir.
On the flex option, if the buyer does an option, and the seller has an option, if the seller gets a higher price for the property, can they just go on and do away with the option?
Exactly. That's the whole point of the flex option, is the seller has the ability to cancel the transaction. With a normal option, the seller has the obligation to sell. The buyer has the right to buy, but not the obligation to do so. So the seller with a flex option does not have the obligation to sell. He can cancel with appropriate notice. That's the beauty of the flex option. It allows you to market a property that you wouldn't otherwise be able to market. There was another question over here. Yes, sir.
Do you normally tell your subject twos that you'll refinance your property?
I tell them that my goal will be to refinance at some point, but I never ever promise. And the disclosures say that. I am very, very much a believer in being honest and straightforward and as transparent as possible with all parties involved. So I tell them my goal will be to refinance at some point, but I can't promise how soon it'll happen. Yeah, I've refinanced almost all my sub 2s now. Yeah. Any other questions? Okay. Yes, sir.
How does the closing work on the subject two?
I'm sorry?
How does the closing work on the subject two?
Okay, I got the first part. How does a closing work on a sub 2? Just like any other closing. When I refinance, the original loan is going to get paid off, and the balance of the proceeds are going to come to me, less expenses. So it's just like any other closing. John, can you ask George to help me out for just a minute, if he's available? Yes, sir. You were next.
What's the reason for the banks doing the short sale?
His question is, what's the reason for the bank doing a short sale? Can you get the next program lined up for me? Bear with me and I'll answer your question. It's called, no, the next program. It's rehabbing for big profit. office. I appreciate you. Good deal. Thank you, sir. You're a good man. Okay. His question was, help me out. What was your question, sir? Why would the bank do a short sale? Because they don't want to foreclose. They don't want to have to take the property back. Banks are not in the property business, they're in the money business. And the reason they'll do a short sale is because they know that it's going to cost them X amount of dollars to foreclose and take the property back. And every bank will have a formula that they use. The gentleman was asking about formulas. Here's where formulas do come into play. The bank will have a formula for what they will take as a short sale payoff. Below that, they will not go. You never know what it is, generally. And as long as your offer is more than that amount, they come out better than if they have to foreclose and take the property back. Banks don't want properties, they want money. Okay, any other questions before we move on to the next section? Okay, good. All right. The next thing we're going to talk about is one of my favorite subjects, rehabbing. And I like to rehab for big profits. Tim and AC talked to you earlier about the average profit you make on a wholesale deal, right? They're averaging about $9,700 profit per deal, right at 10 grand. Sometimes they make 5,000, sometimes they make 1,000, sometimes they make 30,000. Sometimes they make a lot more. But on average, it works out to about $9,700 for us at Prosperity. Other wholesalers might not do as well, others may do better. Okay? Nobody in town does the volume we do. We do more wholesale deals than anybody else in town. More numbers, more volume. Okay. On the other hand, rehabbing, on average, depending upon the price point of the rehab itself, the after repaired value, rehabbing makes anywhere from $15,000 to $50,000 on average. You're going to see my average for some homes that I've done recently, and then you're going to see some numbers for some homes that I'm moving into now toward the end of this presentation. So, why rehabbing? Again, I'll ask you to hold your questions till the end, and then if we have as much time as we did on the last one to answer, if not, I'll be in the back. Okay. Rehabbing or retail sales is when you purchase a property and you make all the necessary repairs to bring that property up to market standards and sell it at a retail price. Rehabbing is flipping properties. Y'all have seen the shows on TV, flipping Las Vegas, flipping Boston. It doesn't happen quite the way they show it on TV. Not nearly as much drama. But that's basically what we're talking about here. We're talking about flipping homes. Okay? And here's an example of a standard flip. This is a hypothetical. You have an after repaired value, or an ARV, A-R-V, an after repaired value of $100,000. You get that house under contract for $60,000. You're going to spend $10,000 in fixing it up. That's a fairly light rehab. and you sell it for close to $100,000. So you're into it for $70,000, you make a profit of $30,000. That's a standard example of a normal flip. Okay? All right, why rehab and retail? Well, AC and Tim touched on it earlier. More profit. There's more profit per deal on a rehab than there is on a wholesale deal. Therefore, I can make the same amount of money doing fewer deals. And I love what I do. I love rehabbing. I'm providing quality housing at a fair price, and I get the biggest kick out of taking a piece of junk and turning it into a jewel. Okay. Here's the process. It's pretty simple. The first thing you got to do is find the deal, and we'll talk about some ways to find deals. You got to get it under contract. You've got to fund it. You've got to fix it. And then you got to flip it. Pretty straightforward. We're going to talk about each one of those categories here for a minute. Okay, finding the deal. I happen to know 43 ways to locate motivated sellers. Our prosperity students learn most of those ways as well. I don't have any trouble finding motivated sellers. Okay, now, I used to do like Tim and AC do. I used to send out direct mail pieces. I used to find the motivated sellers myself. I started out just like AC as a sole practitioner, a sole proprietor, a one-man show, if you will. Now, my business is set up to do where I do one thing and one thing only. Everything else, including finding motivated sellers, I now outsource or delegate. I do one thing and one thing only in my business, and that's raise the money. Everything else I've got outsourced, and I am the laziest guy on the planet. I am so lazy, you wouldn't believe it. Talk about a lifestyle. It's really nice to get up every day and know that all I got to do is go look for some money, and it is so easy to do. We're going to talk tomorrow. I'm going to show you how I raised $7 million without even breaking a sweat. Let me give you a little preview of what you're going to learn tomorrow. We're going to show you how to get $1 million in funding for your deals. $1 million. There you go. There you go. Good for you. Give yourself 500 points. Okay, here's the deal. There is 17 trillion, that's trillion with a T, $17 trillion out there looking for a place to go. It is so easy to find money, folks. Anybody that says, I can't do real estate because I'm broke, I don't have any money. And you don't need money to do real estate, I promise you. Okay, so I know 43 ways to find motivated sellers. Now, I use predominantly wholesalers and realtors to bring me deals. People tell me there's no good deals on the MLS anymore. Has anybody heard that? You can't find a good deal on the MLS? Of my last 5 deals, 2 of them came off the MLS. Straight off the MLS. 2 out of the last 5 came off the MLS. Don't tell me there's no deals on the MLS. Online classified ads is another excellent way to find deals. AC touched on that earlier today. Craigslist, Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. There's all kinds of opportunities to find online classifieds. There's a guy right here in town. I think Cynthia mentioned yesterday, myhousedeals.com. Who all's familiar with myhousedeals.com? Whoa, wow, a lot of y'all know that website. Well, that's a friend of mine, Doug Smith. I knew Doug before he bought his first piece of real estate. Doug used to come and set up chairs for me when I was teaching landlording back in a prior lifetime. Tim I've known since he first got started. Tim didn't own any real estate when I met him. Tim was just getting started in the business, and Tim is a real success story. Okay, so online classified ads like myhousedeals.com, and there's a number of websites out there that provide that service. Paid marketing. Tim and AC do a lot of direct mail. Direct mail works beautifully. It's a great source of finding motivated sellers. When I was actively pursuing my own deals, I used bandit signs a lot. Bandit signs were my most productive method for finding junker deals, and expired listings on the MLS was my most prolific method of finding pretty house deals, what are called pretty house deals. Okay, so finding deals is not hard. I mean, there's lots of deals out there. Next thing you got to do is you got to contract it. Contracting is pretty straightforward. You've got to contact the seller. You've got to inspect the property so you know what you're dealing with. You've got to get a repair estimate. Now, George touched on repair estimates previously. From a wholesaler's perspective, you don't need to be very explicit in your repair estimates. You have to be accurate, but not explicit. You don't have to produce a big list of everything that's going to be done. But if you're going to rehab, you might want to be a little bit more detail-oriented. As George mentioned earlier, I've got a list that I use to determine what repairs need to be done. We also teach at Prosperity Group, we teach you our 4M method to quickly analyze or quickly estimate repairs fairly accurately without being nearly as explicit in the detail. Okay, then you've got to negotiate and agree on a price. Okay. Will mentioned yesterday, in this life is not fair, and in this life you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. Life is not fair, and you don't get what you deserve, you get what you negotiate. Okay? So, negotiation is a critical part of this process. Being able to negotiate well and get the best price possible is critical to your success. Open title, and that's about all it takes to contract a deal. Contact the seller, inspect the property, get repair estimates, negotiate and agree on a price, and open title. Pretty straightforward stuff. Okay, the next thing you have to do is fund it. Now, like I said earlier, there's more money than you can shake a stick at. $17 trillion. Do you guys know what a trillion is, by the way?
No. How many zeros?
I don't know how many zeros, but let me put it into perspective for you. You ready for this? I'm going to put it into perspective for you. I know what a million is because I've made a million. I don't know what a billion is yet. But I know what a million is. If you spent $1 every second that you took breath, if you spent $1, you would spend $60 in a minute, right? You spend $3,600 in an hour, and you'd spend $86,400 in a day. It'd take you about 12 days to spend $1 million, spending $1 a second. Okay, that's $1 million. $1 billion is going to take you almost 32 years. That's the difference between $1 million and $1 billion. 12 days and 32 years. That's the difference between $1 million and $1 billion. Now, you ready for $1 trillion? 31,710 years. 31,710 years.
15 generations.
Something like that.
It's 50 generations.
How long is recorded history? I mean, 31,710 years to spend $1 trillion. Now, our government can spend $1 trillion overnight, you know. Okay, so that put it into perspective for me. When I saw that, I realized what $1 trillion is. And there is $17 trillion looking for a place to go. $17 trillion looking for me to provide a deal for them to put their money into. Don't tell me finding money is hard. Finding money is easy. Okay? All right. So to fund the deal, you can fund it with your own money. That's what I did with my first deal. I bought my first deal in 1974. I've been at this 40 years. I'm a slow learner. I've only done 443 transactions. It's taken me 40 years to do that. It took me like 10 years to do 10 deals. Because I really didn't see the vision when I bought my first deal. I thought, hey, this is pretty slick. I bought a chunk of dirt. I bought 40 acres, split it into 4 10-acre parcels, sold those parcels off, and sold them with owner financing. I carried the paper. I became the bank. I said, wow, this is a great way to make money. I got hooked. But I wasn't very aggressive. So I used my personal money for my first few deals. Well, problem is, it's a limited amount of money. In fact, when I started, it was a very limited amount of money. So I started going to the banks and using bank money and mortgage company money. And that's a great resource. I still use banks today, but I use banks a little differently. Now I use them for what's called takeout money. Anyway, that's another story. But banks and mortgage companies, they will let you go so far and then they'll say, sorry, you've got too many loans. We're not going to loan you any more money. Wait a minute, I'm paying all these loans. I've got good cash flow. You know, why won't you loan me anymore? It's our policy. Okay. So I went to the next source of money, which is hard money. Now, those of you that were here during lunch yesterday, I wasn't in the room, but I understand Blake Yarbrough came over and talked to you about hard money, didn't he? Hard money is a great source of funding. There's a number of hard money lenders here in the Houston area. And then private money. Private money is, oh man, I love private money. I am a private money fool. I love private money because typically it's less expensive than hard money. Okay, so there's plenty of ways you can fund deals. Private money is, well, first of all, let me talk about hard money. Hard money is Blake Yarbrough, Jet Lending, ISB, Red Door, Noble Mortgage, Surrender. You do hard money lending? Hard money or private money? Okay.
You didn't even have to ask me.
Okay, hard money is when it's a company set up to loan money, and that's what they do for a living. That's how they That's how they make money, is by loaning their money out. Private money, on the other hand, is an individual. Somebody like me, I'm a private money lender. I'm a private money borrower and a private money lender. Somebody like me who makes you a loan, and I'm just an individual. I'm not that's not my main source of income. It's not a company. It's a private individual making a private loan to another individual. Okay, that's the main difference between private money and hard money. Okay, so there's lots of ways to fund your deals. Yes, sir.
On the hard and private money lenders, is there a certain cap that they're lending on?
Is there a certain cap? You mean the dollar amount of the value of the property?
No, the money that they lend.
The money that they will lend, as far as the dollar amount or the interest rate? Dollar amount. Yes. Every hard money lender will have his cap, and every private money lender will have his cap. Everybody's different. Every hard money lender is different. Every private money lender is different.
How about interest that they're allowed to charge? Is there regulation?
Yes. In Texas, you can charge no more than 18% interest for a real estate loan. Now, has anybody ever heard of a hard money company who charged more than 18%? How did they do it? I'll tell you how they did it. Points. But the points went to a different company. If the points go to the same company, it's included in the 18%. If they go to a different company, they can do it differently. Okay. Yes, sir. Okay, we are now getting into topics that are way off base. We're gonna talk about private money and hard money tomorrow. If it's okay with you, can we defer that till tomorrow? And if your question doesn't get answered tomorrow, I want you to see me privately, because I'll answer it. I promise you. I want you, when you guys leave out of here tomorrow evening, I want you to have every question. You have every question that came up during the course of this weekend. I want you to have it answered before you leave the building. And if I can't answer it, I promise you, there's guys in our organization that can answer all those questions. We don't want you going out of here confused or not knowing, or not knowing the answer to something, or with a question on your mind. We want you going out of here ready to hit it Monday morning. In fact, tomorrow, one of the things I'm going to do is give you a 30-day game plan so that Monday morning you can go to work. Okay, so we talked about finding it. We talked about funding it. We talked about finding it, contracting it, funding it. Now we need to fix it. All right. There's several ways you can fix properties. Somebody is going to have to swing a hammer and sling paint. Now, I don't do that. In fact, there's a state law in Texas that says Jim Kennedy is specifically prohibited from swinging hammers and slinging paint. When I swing a hammer, the nail I hit is normally the one on the end of my thumb. Okay? When I sling paint, I normally get more on me than I get on the wall. So I don't swing hammers and sling paint. It's just not what I do. Okay? All right. So, but there are people who have those skills, have that skill set, and they might want to DIY, do it yourself. Okay? Now, if you are a contractor, if you're in the business of being a contractor and you want to do a rehab, you might want to do it yourself. I will tell you this. Most of the guys that I know that are contractors very quickly realize that they can make a whole lot more money doing deals than they can swinging hammers and slinging paint. It is not an efficient use of your time. Now, a buddy of mine, very knowledgeable, prolific real estate entrepreneur, started doing it this way, DSOYI. Do some of it yourself. He was comfortable doing some of the stuff. He could swing a hammer, he could sling paint, he could lay tile. He didn't fix roofs, he didn't fix AC units, he didn't do electrical, he didn't do plumbing, but he could do some of the basic stuff. And that's how he started his rehabbing business, doing some of it himself. Or you can act as your own general contractor. Now, when I got in the business, I had no skills in these first two areas. None. Zip, zilch. So I started here. I started acting as my own general contractor. That means I had to arrange the foundation guy. I had to arrange the electrician, the plumber, the painter, the roofer. I had to coordinate all this. I had to make sure that the foundation guy got in first, followed by the roofer. I had to make sure that the painter got in before the carpet got laid. I had to make sure that the plumber wasn't butting heads with the electrician. That was my job, was to coordinate all that stuff. Now I pick up the phone and I say, Mr. Contractor, I've got 3 or 4 that I work with. Mr. Contractor, I need a bid on 123 Main Street. How fast can you get me the bid? That's the extent of my contracting business now. I let them do it all. Now, I pay more money to have that done, but it's more efficient for me to do that, to hire a general contractor. It's more efficient for me to do that and spend my time doing deals. I make a lot more money doing deals than I do acting as a general contractor. Okay, so fixing it. Hopefully, if you want to get in the rehab game, hopefully you'll come to a point where you realize that it's more efficient to hire it done than to do it yourself. Okay, finding good contractors. Well, the very best source is referrals from other rehabbers, experienced guys, people, guys and gals, experienced rehabbers who are actively doing deals, hiring contractors, and that's the best source that I can think of to find good contractors. 4 things you've got to expect of your contractor. Number 1. Sure. Finding good contractors. The absolute very best source is other rehabbers. Got it? Okay. 4 things to expect from your contractor. Obviously, you want good workmanship. That's paramount. You don't want to hire a guy who comes in and does slipshod work. It's got to be completed in a timely manner. Time is money in real estate. So when that contractor starts working, I want him on the job at least 6 days a week. I want him checking in with his crew. I want crews there 6 days a week, and I want the contractor checking on those crews, and I want the work to progress in a timely manner. Okay? Price that fits the budget. This is critical. You've got to have a contractor that can deliver investor pricing. You can't go out and hire Church Services or ARS or any of the big contractors that supply the retail market, because you just can't afford them. It won't fit an investor pro forma. And 4th, they've got to stand behind their work. All of my contractors comply with all 4 of these standards, and if they don't, I don't hire them again. If they do a bad job, they're never going to work for me again anyway. What I'm talking about is if my audience, my customer is a retail buyer, an owner-occupant retail buyer. So when I do a rehab, I'm selling to somebody who's going to move into the house. 99.9% of the time, they're going to have the property inspected by a licensed inspector, and that licensed inspector is going to find some things wrong. My contractor is going to go back and stand behind his work at no cost to me, and my contractors will even throw in little stuff that wasn't on our original scope of work. They'll throw in the little stuff and only charge me for the stuff that the inspector finds that wasn't in the original scope of work. You're not selling a brand new home and nothing is perfect. So the inspectors are going to find some stuff wrong. That's all I mean, is that the contractor's got to stand behind his work. Okay. Yes, sir.
How often do you negotiate the contract repairs?
Every time. Oh, I'm sorry. The question was, how often do I negotiate the cost of the repairs? Every time. I have contractors that know what I will pay, and they know what it takes to do a reasonable job at a reasonable price. They've got to make money. I don't begrudge anybody an income. I just don't want them to get rich off of one of my deals. Okay? I negotiate every time. I might not try and beat a contractor up, but I'm going to get 3 bids, and the contractors know that they're competing with other contractors. Okay. I think AC mentioned this earlier. Begin the repairs immediately because time is money. Yes, sir.
Do you negotiate a timeline with your contractor?
His question is, do I negotiate a timeline with my contractors? Yes, I do. And I will ask a contractor, how long is it going to take to do this job? Now, some of the jobs that you're going to see took 3 weeks, 4 weeks. Some of the jobs now are taking 6 months. If the job took 3 weeks, I'd tell them I'll give you 4. But one day on the 29th day, you're going to start paying a penalty for every day you're late. Now, how do I figure the penalty? I take the costs of my money, because I use almost exclusively private money to fund these deals. I take the costs of my money, figure out what it costs me every day to pay for that money, and a little bit more than that is going to be what my contractor's penalty is going to be. Okay. So as an example, I did a deal recently up in Dallas. It was a $465,000 loan. I bought the property for $310,000. Well, I'll talk about the numbers in a minute. Anyway, it was $465,000 loan, and the daily cost of that was pricey, because it was at 13%. It's hard money, by the way, up in Dallas. First time I've used hard money in 10 years. We'll talk about that deal specifically. Okay. All right, they've got to do quality work. We talked about that previously. Don't cut corners. These are the same points that AC made earlier. And watch your budget and deadlines. Okay. Here's the top 5 features that are important to today's buyers. Now this comes to me from a survey from Trulia.com. It was conducted a couple of years ago, but I can't imagine much has changed in the last 2 years. Here's the 5 top features that are important to today's buyers. A master bathroom with spa features. That means they want the whirlpool tub and dual sinks, and they want it nice. Number 2 is a walk-in master closet with built-in shelves, built-in drawers, built-in shoe racks. Next is a gourmet kitchen, and right now the open design is very, very prevalent. If you go into new homes tell you what buyers want. You want to see what buyers want? Go look at a couple of new home subdivisions. Go preview their houses, and the open design is very prevalent right now. Almost every rehab I'm doing right now, I'm opening up the floor plan. Almost every rehab. Covered outdoor decks. Oh, you can't see it, but it's hardwood floors is the last. Number 5 is hardwood floors. Okay, then you've got to flip it. Now, AC and Tim talked about flipping wholesale deals. It's not that different from flipping retail deals, be they residential or commercial. You can FSBO it. You can act as a for sale by owner. You can hire flat fee realtors. I do this a lot. I get it exposed to the MLS, but I don't want to pay a full 6% commission. So I'll hire a flat fee realtor for anywhere from $99 to $1,500, depending upon the bundle of services I'm going to get and expect from that realtor. You can hire full service realtors. I have done so in the past. Open houses and showings. Tim teaches a way to sell houses in 7 days or less. It's something he learned from somebody else, and he's very good at it. Tim does an exceptional job of selling rehabs in 7 days or less. You take offers and agree on a price, and you close and get paid. That's the best part, the getting paid. Now, as George, AC, Tim, Will all mentioned previously, wholesaling is relatively fast and quick. Rehabbing is not. Rehabbing takes a little longer. You have significantly more risk in rehabbing than you do in wholesaling, but the paydays are better. You're going to see some examples here in a minute. Okay, so here's the kind of money that can be made with flips. I'm gonna run through some flips that I've done. The flips on this screen are going to be stuff that I completed over about a 2-year period of time, from beginning to end. Old Village Lane, I made about $20,000 profit on that deal. Barracuda Lane down in LaPorte, I made $23,000 profit on that deal. William Morton out in Pecan Grove out by Richmond, I made $20,500 on that one. Marlin Lane. Marlin Lane was in the same subdivision as Barracuda Lane in LaPorte. Anybody familiar with LaPorte? LaPorte's an interesting city. There is a subdivision. There is a subdivision. It's called Bay Colony. It is totally separate from the rest of the city of LaPorte. It's not connected with LaPorte at all. It's separated from LaPorte by a little municipality called Shore Acres. Don't ever do a rehab in Shore Acres. I've never done one, but I've talked to some guys that have had horror stories down there. Well, this little subdivision called Bay Colony is completely separate from the rest of LaPorte. And all the streets, it's a small little subdivision. All the streets are named after fish. Marlin Lane, Barracuda Lane, Tarpon Lane, Sailfish Lane, Swordfish Lane, all these different fish names. And it's a small subdivision. There's maybe 10 or 12 streets. So I'm doing this rehab over on Barracuda Lane. That's a nice little rehab. The house had been damaged by Hurricane Ike. I went in, got a good deal on it, fixed it up, bought it from a wholesaler, fixed it up, and while I'm fixing it up, I contacted the president of the Property Owners Association down there, the HOA. And I said, I introduced myself. I said, hi, my name's Jim. I noticed you've got this nice little community area there. It had a boat ramp, it had a dock, it had a fishing pier, it had a swimming pool, it had a gym set for the kids, a picnic area for the families. Nice little community area, but it was locked up. I said, how do you get access? So I called the president of this Property Owners Association. And I explained who I am, what I'm doing, and why I'm calling. I'm not going to move into this house. I'm going to sell it, but I want to be able to tell my buyer, whoever buys this property on Barracuda Lane, I want to be able to tell them about the features of the community. So we have a nice little conversation. A couple weeks later, I get a call from Bill Stecker. And Bill has got a house over on Marlin Lane. Same shape as Barracuda, damaged by Hurricane Ike. Now, Bill lives across the street. And the owners of Marlin Lane got their insurance settlement, and they were one of the families that said, that's it, we're done, we're moving out of the path of hurricanes. We've had it. So they sold the house to Bill, who lived across the street. Now, Bill was a trucker, and he watched Flipping Las Vegas or Flipping Boston or whatever. He said, I'm gonna do that, and I'm gonna have me a little rent house when it's all said and done. He had no idea what he was sinking his teeth into. He bit off way more than he could chew. So he got the demo done. He got the demolition phase done. Got all the sheetrock off the walls, got all the insulation out. This house had no foundation damage. It was slab on grade. The roof was still tight, no damage to the roof. It was just flood damage inside. So he got all the sheetrock off, all the insulation out, all the carpet pulled up, everything done. Got all the cabinets pulled out of the kitchen, except the upper cabinets. He left them. I don't know why. I guess he was going to try and match the lower cabinets to the upper cabinets. I don't know. Anyway, and he had all the trash hauled off. So I didn't have to budget a demolition. So I went and I bought the house from Bill, because he really, once he got started, he realized it was a lot more work than he thought it was going to be. Okay, so I made about $21,000 on that deal. Nice little hit. All right. Oh, that doesn't count the $40,000 I made. I got to tell you about this. This is a hoot. That subdivision sits right next to the Bayport Container Facility. Now, the Bayport Container Facility is where they bring in these ocean liners. I'm sure you've seen them on TV or in the movies, where they're stacked up 10 or 20 stories high of containers, freight containers. And the ships come in, they come into this facility, and then they've got these monster cranes, these cranes that are like 10 or 12 stories high, that go and pick the containers up off the ship and put them on flatbed trucks and flatbed rail cars. And then they go off to wherever they're going. And they do the same thing in reverse. When we are shipping stuff overseas or wherever, we bring containers into the Bayport Container Facility on flatbed trucks and flatbed rail cars, and they take those same cranes and take them off the trucks and trains and put them on the ships. Well, the Bayport Container Facility is run by the Port of Houston Authority. So I'm in the middle of this rehab. Actually, I had sold the house. I'd done the rehab and sold the house. Marlin Lane. And the buyer, the first buyer, backed out. Because the wife said she didn't want to live that close to the Bayport container facility. She had heard that they were going to be doing an expansion, and she didn't want to have to deal with that. So they backed out. I put the house back on the market, and then I get a letter from the Port of Houston Authority, and it says, we want to give you $40,000. I said, okay. Why? Here's the deal. They had done a study, and they're going to expand the Port of Houston, the Bayport container facility, and they had done a study, and they had determined how many houses were impacted by the this addition, this expansion program. And if you owned a property and it had a house on it, they were willing to bribe you to the tune of $40,000 if you would give them an easement. Now, an easement is nothing more than a right to cross your land or a right to impact your land. And I gave them an easement for light, sound, and vibration. George, when you get a minute. So they gave me, they asked me to sign an easement that says I will not sue them if they cause consternation with light, sound, and vibration. It took me about 2 seconds to decide, yes, I'm going to do it. Yes, I'll take your 40 grand. Now, here's the issue. That easement is going to run with the land. That means that easement is going to stay attached to that property in perpetuity until it is removed by the Port of Houston Authority or some legal way to get it removed or whatever. But that easement's going to run with the land. It's going to stay attached to that house. So my decision was, how much is it going to affect the marketability of this house? It already cost me one buyer, not the easement, but the Port of Houston Authority already cost me one buyer. So how much am I going to have to drop the price in order to get the next buyer to buy this house? And is it going to be better for me to take the 40 grand, give them the easement, or should I refuse it? Well, it took me 2 seconds to decide, yes, I'm going to take the 40 grand. Put the house back on the market. I did drop the price $5,000. So it cost me $5,000, and I made $40,000. So my profit was $35,000. That's not included in the $21,000, by the way. That was freebie. I wished I'd owned 5 houses in that subdivision, or the whole damn subdivision, as a matter of fact. Okay, next house is Meadow Lane. This was down in Lamarck, Texas. East Lake is down around Edgebrook area, 45 and 610 area. $39,000 profit on that puppy. Bighorn Drive. Bighorn Drive is an interesting one. I'll talk about Bighorn when I talk about private money tomorrow, because I pitched a house, a private money deal to a private money lender, and he didn't like the house I pitched to him because it's one of these next ones that you're going to see, and so I moved him over to Bighorn, and he was happy with that. I made $34,000 on that house. Oops. Get the right clicker here. Sage Canyon down in the Sagemont area. Again, 45 and 610 area. 37,000. I'm sorry? Did you? I got it. Sorry.
Somebody got it, I think.
Yeah. It's a nice house. Share Court, 37,000 on on Sage Canyon, 31,000 on Share Court. So you can see the numbers are a little bit higher than the average wholesale flip. Here's one, Pines Place, that's up in Atascocita, actually Humble. Fairbrook Lane, that's out in LaPorte again. Squirrel Tree, Capri Lane, that was in Seabrook, and Ballswell Drive up in Tomball. I'll do deals anywhere from Tomball on the northwest, Tomball on the northwest, Kingwood on the northeast, Clear Lake on the southeast, Richmond, Texas on the southwest, and anywhere in between. So I cover a pretty wide geographic area. All of my multifamily projects are in that same area as well. Okay, so you add all those profits up together, and it comes up to a total of $441,000. This is over a 2-year period of time. So I averaged $29,400 per deal. Not a bad way to make a living. Okay. All right. I want to talk about some specific deals, some that we haven't talked about before. Because now I'm doing, yes, sir.
After your profit was made, you subtract the hard money lending from that?
No, that was in there.
That was in there?
Yeah. That was in there. The profit was net profit to me.
Oh, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Percentage of that list would you say came from wholesale?
Probably 80%, maybe 90%. Oh, the question was what percentage of that list do I think came from wholesalers, wholesale deals? And probably 80% of them. I buy most of my homes, most of my projects from wholesalers or through realtors because, like I said before, I now have my business down to the point where I do one thing and one thing only, and that's raise money. Everything else I either outsource, have employees, virtual assistants, or partners to deal with. Okay, here's the deal. I'm going to show you a couple of the direction I'm moving now. I'm moving into a little bit more expensive homes. Why? More money. You got it. He said it. Give yourself 500 points.
5 billion, trillion?
No, 500 points. He said it. More money. It's here's a deal I did in Westbury. Okay. Anybody know Chimney Rock? Yes. Chimney Rock's a fairly well-traveled road. I mean, that's not a side street. That was one of the downsides of this project, was it was on a major thoroughfare. I had to take that into consideration when I bought the thing. I had to know going in that there was still enough profit, even though I know I'm going to take a hit because it's on a major traffic pattern, a major traffic area. I had to know I was going to still make a decent profit. So I bought this place for $78,000. Needed a fair amount of work. I put $75,000 into a rehab. I opened up the floor plan, redesigned the interior of the house. Had to do it with permits because we changed some structural load-bearing walls, and but the house came out really, really nice. I put $75,000 into rehabbing it. Cost me $30,000 above and beyond the rehab. The $75,000 went to my contractors. The $30,000 went to my lender, my holding costs, that sort of thing. The realtors on the back end, all that. So I was all in for $183,000. Sold it for $275,000. My profit was $92,000. That's why I'm doing the kind of deals I'm doing now. Yeah, it's a very hot area. Westbury is very hot. I'd love to do 3 more deals down there. I'm sorry? It needed $75,000 worth of work. His question was, how bad was it? It needed $75,000 worth of work. But remember that $75,000 also accomplished moving walls, opening it up, making an open floor plan.
And also all of the plumbing and the,
Well, there was no issue with plumbing.
that area, that's pretty good.
Yeah, I didn't have any problem with the plumbing on this one. Now, I have had plumbing issues, but not on this one. This one was easy. That did include a new roof, though. Okay, here's the deal. Hugo, does that look familiar? I haven't modified the numbers yet. Check this out. These numbers are now changing. Hugo and I are doing this deal together. This is in Midtown area, and when we bought it, we paid $120. When we bought this deal, we couldn't figure out why in the world is it priced at $120 when lots, comparable sized lots, are going for $150,000, selling for $150,000, not listed, selling for $150,000. We couldn't figure it out. Why is it $120? Why is it $120? Put it under contract, tied it up, did some due diligence. Come to find out, the realtor that had it listed didn't know what she had. She was a brand new realtor and screwed up. So we got a sweet deal on this one. The rehab, it was going to cost us $175. Now we're at $180. Was going to be $130. Well, it's actually now it's even a little higher. It's at $180. But nonetheless, we're going to spend $40,000 in costs, roughly. We'll be all in for about $335, maybe $350, something like that. But the ARV used to be $450. What's the ARV now? Say it real loud.
$525.
Since we've owned this property, that value of this project has gone up $75,000. The reason we've had this project so long is because we're going through the permitting phase. We're having some challenges down at the city, but I got the permits. Hopefully we've got that all resolved. So our costs are going to be a little higher, but the ARV has gone up significantly. Okay? So our potential profit on this one was $125. Now it's going to be even higher.
How many square foot is it?
2,600 square feet.
So you don't think it would have been better off to just bulldozing it and starting the construction?
We definitely considered that.
We get more from the preserving the historic.
Yeah, it's in an area of town where people love those old. Yeah, it's not actually a historic district, although right down the street, 3 doors down is some houses tagged for historical houses. Yeah. Okay. This next deal is up in Dallas. This is my first venture outside the Houston area, and I told you that I use a lot of private money, right? And I'm a whiz at raising private money. And I thought, it'll be easy. I've got this deal up in Dallas. I'll just take some of my private money lenders with me up to Dallas. We'll do this deal. Everything will be hunky-dory. You'll see the numbers in a minute. It's a big deal. It takes a lot of money. So not all of my private money lenders had the financial wherewithal to take this deal down. And in single family, I like to use one lender for one house. So I have a limited number of private money lenders that could attack this size project. Because here's the numbers. Purchased for $310. It was listed on the MLS for $416. They dropped the price to $360,000. We went in and bought it for $310. We figured $150. We ended up putting $167 into it. So we're all in. We spent about $40,000 in costs roughly. So we're all in for 517. The ARV, 650.
What part of Dallas is that?
Walnut Hill, who asked that question? I don't know. I've been up there. I don't know Dallas. It's Walnut Hill, wherever Walnut Hill is. You know, that's the name of the subdivision and the property. So my profit potential on this one is 133. Now it's on the market as we speak. So we have to sell it for 650 or more to make our 133. We've got it on the market right now at 690. It'll probably sell for around 670, something like that. Okay, so I hope I've given you some idea of how to do a rehab, the kinds of money that can be made. But now I want to tell you the absolute most important thing you can do. You ready? The absolute most important thing, in fact, it is the key to success for rehabbing, is to take action. Only when you take action can you succeed. Only when every success story starts with a first step. And you folks are here today, and you have the opportunity to take your first step and join us in Prosperity Group and come along with us and see the kinds of deals we're doing and participate in that and build your business around the models that we offer. That's all I've got on the presentation. I've got 5 minutes. Any questions? Yes, ma'am.
I would like to know the other 39 ways to find money.
The other 39 ways to find motivated sellers or find money?
Money. You said you had 43 ways.
To find motivated sellers.
Oh, sellers. Okay, I'd like to know that.
I'll tell you what. See me after. I'll give you my business card, and I will email you the list. Is that fair? Anybody else who wants it, come see me. All right, I'll tell you what. I'll go get a stack of business cards because I've only got 10 or 12 in my pocket. I'll go get a stack of business cards. Email me. I'll send you all the list. Yes, sir.
One general thing that you talked about earlier, gourmet kitchen, when you said everybody wants gourmet kitchen now,
Uh-huh.
I don't know whether you said that, but everybody wants granite countertops now.
Yeah, granite countertops, stainless steel appliances. Yeah.
That package.
That Westbury house, I put a wine cooler in there. I put a wine room in there.
Even under $100,000 home, they are expecting granite counter.
Doesn't surprise me. Doesn't surprise me. Yes, ma'am.
That house in Chula, how many days after you put on the market?
Her question is, after I put it on the market, how long did it take to sell? I don't know. That one took a little while. I can't remember. I don't know. I move most of my houses pretty quickly. Typically I move a house in less than 30 days, generally. That one took a little longer. But I couldn't tell you how. I'd have to go back and look. Any other?
In that area, by the time you acquire it and by the time you sell it, like flip it, about 5 months. Close.
Yeah. She asked me how long from the time I put it on the market did it sell.
That's what I was talking
Yeah.
about. In that area.
Yeah. It's about right. Because it's a fairly good sized job. Yeah. You think that's a major rehab? Wait till you see what we're doing to Andrews. Is that a major rehab or what? $180,000 worth of work. Any other questions? Okay, folks. Thank you very much for your kind attention. We will take a